that happen?
There's an interesting story that my mother once told me when I was young in an effort to teach me a lesson. And it's in Chinese, it's called Shu Bai Yu Mi. Now what this means in its literal sense is that the bear picks up the corn. Now here's how the story goes. The bear goes down the line and picks up corn cobs, and what an effort he does is once he picks up a corn cob, he drops one. So as he goes down the line, he picks up all these corn cobs, and eventually he looks down and stays where he started. And so, when seeing the situation in Syria regarding the Russian government, I see a similar pattern. Now, Mr. Putin, an effort who is trying to court Mr. al-Assad with massive weaponry, support through mass weaponry shippings, as well as Egypt's President al-Sisi, we can see that Russia has, in fact, made no improvement in terms of international diplomacy, as well as addressing the issues such as terrorism in the Middle East. Now, Russia's national interests have, in fact, been questioned, and their capabilities have been doubted. Thus, when faced with the question, should the Russian government take a stronger stance against the Assad regime in Syria, I will answer with a resounding yes, for the following 3 points. 1, the incident of Syria's attack on a Russian jetliner, as we all have known. 2, to show that Russia's capability of tackling the world's most intractable problems. And lastly, to contrast the claim of the West's tendency to abandon Arab allies and to increase Russian credibility and legitimacy. So regarding my first point, the incident of the Syrian attack on a Russian jetliner, that this happened roughly in early November of 2015. According to the New York Times in November, should an attack be confirmed, particularly if the Islamic State's claim that it bombed the plane in revenge for Russia's intervention in Syria turns out to be true, analysts and other experts expect that it may only strengthen Mr. Putin's resolve to crack down in the Middle East. As we can see, for the 224 victims who have died, the Russian victims who have died in this serious cruel attack on the Russian charter flight, President Putin has in fact already been moving towards a stronger stance on the Assad regime. And so he should. To be half in and half out of the situation only worsens the current state of affairs. To be intervening but not really doing anything, to have a hands-off approach yet be involved. Now the other option, to completely pull out, will be detrimental in fact to Russia's global reputation and future international diplomacy efforts. They cannot back down from this war on terror. And much of the newest fighters of the Islamic State, according to The Economist in November, roughly 7,000 just in the latter half of 2015 have come from Russia and former Soviet states. As we can see, Russia is deeply entrenched in the Middle Eastern situation. Now, this particular terrorist attack or an attack on the Syrian government, these claims have been argued about and debated upon, has issued a threat to Russian interests, an effort to warn Russia from intervening any further, and Russia must stand against that by taking a stronger stance on both the Islamic State through the Assad regime in Syria. Second, we must show Russia's capability of tackling the world's most intractable problems. To quote, to reverse their course on the war on terror after its first setback, however violent, will undercut that image, according to the New York Times in November. Now the image we're talking about is the one since the fall of the Soviet Union. Russia's image has been desperately trying to repatriate itself. With Putin's success with his party United Russia securing mass popularity from the civilians in Russia, as well as his charisma, and the state of the Russian government, which is at its center full of oligopolies and patron clientism, have supported this effort, yes. However, to back down from now, the first global-scale war, allied in fact partially with the West, and if Russia takes a stronger stance against Russia, fully allied with the West, will show much of the world Russia's prowess, as well as take a giant stride towards Russia's effort into improving future diplomacy efforts. Now, there is general confusion as to why Russia is in fact intervening in the Middle East at all within the nation. And this sentiment is currently only weakening Russian nationalism as well as its international image. And thus we can see a stronger grip on Assad is crucial. Lastly, we must contrast the claim of the West's tendency to abandon Arab allies since the fall of the Arab Spring, as well as increase Russian credibility and legitimacy. Now to quote, since the Arab Spring in 2011 and its chaotic aftermath, Syria has been Russia's only ally, yet now Putin has moved on to expand to Egypt. As we can see, as I mentioned in my first point, Mr. Putin has already been moving on to increase allies in the Middle East. Now this is according to The Economist in December 2015. Russia against Syria, Islamic State, and al-Assad alike must strengthen their hold, in fact, to weaken both militaries through allied ground forces, Because supporting al-Assad will in fact antagonize Western forces, Russia must focus on fighting the Islamic State as well as halt the support of the Assad regime through weaponry support and pressure the transition of the Assad regime into a transitional government, traditional government. Assad's hands-off approach, in fact, to ISIS has been the Middle East's most crucial flaw in countering terrorism. And this must be resolved through Russian pressure. Currently, antagonizing the West in the Middle East is not a wise decision. In fact, Russia must show their loyalty to Arab allies as well as the West as for the benefit of the Russian state. So, in face of the question, should the Russian government take a stronger stance against the Assad regime in Syria, I will answer with a resounding yes for the following 3 points. 1, the incident of Syria's attack on the Russian jetliner. 2, to show Russia's capability of tackling the world's most intractable problems in the Middle East. And lastly, to contrast the claim of the West's tendency to abandon Arab allies and increase Russian credibility and legitimacy in contrast. May Russia finally move on from being the bear that keeps dropping corn pops as well as picking up at the same time and finally end up not where it started. Thank you very much.